So, hey guys, guess what? I'm in my new apartment where, it's wonderful. And a lot of you guys from my last video really wanted me to do my roommate horror story that I dealt with back in high school. And it makes me really happy that I can actually do these again. A big reason why I didn't do story times for a while was honestly, I was very stressed out. I was very depressed, and I was also very anxious. I'm gonna talk about that in a later video, but it was really hard for me to feel in a safe enough place to do these videos. If that sounds like really bad, it kind of was, because I would constantly be interrupted. My work would constantly be belittled, and I no matter how hard I tried, I could never find a full moment of peace to be able to do these kind of things. And then with the summer, it was all hot and gross, but that's not why you're here. That's not why you clicked this video. You're here to know about what my terrible experience was, especially when a lot of you guys know this is mine and my fiance's future husband's, because I'm also getting married this month. Kill me. No, not really. I'm really happy. It's just a lot's happening this month. We have had roommates in the past before we were living together, and this was a big one. So this happened to me back in high school. Now, I need to explain. Obviously, the name of the person has been changed, and I've changed it for a very specific reason. My really close friends and family who watch this are going to know exactly who I'm talking about, which is why I gave them this nickname without actually outing the person. So, let's just get into it. So this happened back in high school. I was probably 16, 17, maybe. I don't even think I was 17 yet. And so what had happened was Cody and I had been dating, and we hadn't been dating that long. I think we were about to hit our 1 year, or right around that range, when this happened. And Cody had this really good friend that was older than both of us. We're going to call him Kanji. So Kanji was a senior. This is his last year. And Kanji was that edgy guy back in high school. And this was before I had a really good world view that I do now. There were so many red flags and so many things I just did not see. If you hear jingling or jumping in the background, my chinchillas and my cat are here. Sorry in advance if that bothers you. I can't do much about it. Anyway, so Kanji was in his last year of high school, and Kanji was the edgy guy, and he was a very good friend to Cody. He wasn't his best friend, but they hung out all the time. They'd spend the night all the time. They'd go on adventures and yada yada yada. Well, it was getting very close to Kanji's 18th birthday. No, Kanji's older than me, so I would have definitely been 16. Okay, I was definitely 16. Sorry, I have to do math in my head. And I remember he was saying how he was extremely paranoid that his parents were going to kick him out when he was 18. Now, little high school Michi didn't think that was possible. I heard about it, but I thought that was always just a rumor. That was a little thing that parents would tell their kids to freak them out. I didn't know this was an actual thing that happened. Looking back on it now, this was another red flag. So it's still terrible to do, especially because Kanji's birthday was really early in the school year, so he wouldn't have even finished his senior year if he had been kicked out. So he'd been talking about it and getting really worried. And at the time, my parents, they had an extra house. This sounds very weird out of context. I'm just going to explain that real quick. When my parents moved, they bought the house next door for my grandmother, because at the time they bought the houses, my parents were making really good money. This is before the economy fucking tanked. And my mom bought my grandmother the house next door so they could have a caregiver and not have her living with us. And so that's what was going on. So we had a spare house, and it was a 2-story house when my grandmother couldn't go up the second story. So we pretty much had a whole 3. No, if you count the living room, it was technically a 4-bedroom house. Anyway, it was a very big house. And so thinking back on it, I never thought it was that big, but now that I'm an adult, I realize it's a really big house. And so it's important, I swear. And so I remember going to my parents very concerned because while Kanji wasn't a good friend of mine, I didn't like the idea of someone being 18 and kicked out. And for a lot of you guys who don't know, this is probably something a lot of people don't know. My mother was actually homeless growing up for a lot of her adolescence and teen years because of her parents. And that's the deal. I'm not going to go into it right now. But because of that and very poor parenting, young homeless people has a very, very strong resonance in my mom. And my mom knew that Kanji was a really good friend of Cody's, and we'd been almost dating a year. And so I remember my mom asked Cody, like, do you trust Kanji if we were to let him live here? And I remember being like blown away, like, oh my God, that would be so great. And it would only be if Kanji had been kicked out. Again, this is very important because Kanji was telling everybody that he was worried he was getting kicked out. And so my parents talked about with Cody, and then they talked to Kanji, and Kanji was overjoyed. He said, thank you. If this happens, I'll let you guys know. Yeah. And so that was a huge mistake. I realize that now, years later, I'm finding out things that I'll get into. I'll get into a little bit later, all right? So it was Kanji's 18th birthday, and we were all very, very nervous. And then we got that phone call. We got the phone call in the middle of the night. Kanji had been kicked out. All of his stuff that he owned was on the front lawn of his parents' house, and he had nowhere else to go. So my parents already knew about this. So we packed up packed up Cody's dad's truck, and we all went to get Kanji's stuff from his parents' house, and he moved in with us. And he moved into the house next door. Now, there were some very important rules that my parents had, because my parents were extremely giving to Kanji. This is really important. He had his whole house, pretty much, the whole upstairs. Like I said, 4 or 5 bedrooms with 2 bathrooms. Plus, he couldn't really use the kitchen, but he could go into our house because it was, in a way, the houses were connected, but not really. And so he could use our kitchen. We were night people, so it didn't ever bother us. And my grandmother had her own room in the bottom story, so he wouldn't bother her, and he wouldn't bother her helper. So he had his own house. He didn't have to pay rent because he was still in high school. He had his food paid for. And my parents were like, okay, you have room and board paid for. We will take you. This was another important one to remember. We will take my parents, because I was a transfer kid. So my 2 brothers actually went to a different high school than I did. And because of that, it caused myself to get to school extremely early. I would be the person getting to school at 6 a.m. when school started at 7 because I was the transfer kid. So my mom told Kanji, all right, you're 18. We can get you a bus pass if you sleep in. Now, you need to wake up when we wake up to go to school. And you will get a free ride to school and a free ride back home. But if you are not awake when we leave and ready to go, you need to find your own ride to school. Again, I remember thinking back at the time when I was a young little teenager and I didn't know the real world. I remember being like, well, that's not really fair. He doesn't really have a car or a phone or anything. Now that I'm an adult, I realize that's extremely fair, because there are many 18-year-olds out there who have jobs, who pay rent, who are living on their own, or living with other people and they're paying and all this other stuff, and Kanji just didn't. Kanji got a really, really good ticket from someone who didn't know him that well. Because remember, he wasn't really my friend, he was Cody's friend. And so that was all good and dandy. We were living together for about 3 months. Things were going really great. It's always like 2 or 3 months with me, I've noticed, one of these stories. And I slowly started to remember that Cody started hanging out with Kanji less and less, because we wanted to do stuff as a couple. We wanted to watch movies, we wanted to cuddle, we wanted to go on dates. And Kanji kept wanting to come along with us, and we didn't really want that. So there were many times where it would be late at night, and again, my parents didn't give him a money budget, so Kanji had to make his own money to go do things. But remember, my mom paid for room, board, transportation, and my parents were even willing to buy him clothes. And another important thing was he needed to get schoolwork done. So my father, who had a spare laptop, gave Kanji a laptop and bought internet for the spare house. So this kid, this 18-year-old, had a free multi-bedroom house, free food, free computer, and free rides to school. These are a lot of really good things, and clothes if he needed clothes. These were a lot for pretty much strangers to give a person, And He seemed very grateful at first. He didn't have to even do anything. He didn't have to take care of my grandmother. He didn't have to clean. He didn't have to do shit. One really important thing, though, and this is when I realized that when the economy started doing really bad, my mom had told Kanji, listen, you cannot have pets. At the time, we didn't have pets. So Kanji wasn't allowed to have pets. You wouldn't think that's a big deal, but that's gonna, again, like I said with those other things, those are gonna come back later. Yes, they are. And this is gonna be a very long video, so hope you guys are buckled in. So I remember specifically there was one instance where Kanji blew up on us, and this was the first time we'd ever witnessed Kanji blow up on somebody. Cody and I had rented the Silent Hill movie. Neither of us had ever watched it before. We were watching it in my parents', and the chinchillas are going. My parents had this game media room where we would watch our stuff. And so in that room, we'd put the DVD in. We had told Kanji when we were going to watch it, and Kanji didn't come down, didn't come over to the next door house. So we were like, oh, whatever, he's asleep or on the computer or doing whatever, didn't matter. So we watch the movie, everything's fine, we like it. And then right when the movie ends, Kanji comes in and is like, okay, I'm ready to watch the movie. And we're like, oh, we already watched it. And I remember Cody was getting ready to go home because he still had school. And Kanji, like, blew up and started screaming at us about how, like, we were really ungrateful that, like, that we knew he wanted to watch the movie with us and all this other, like, really, it was really weird. It was really out there, and I had never in my life witnessed someone blow up like this over something as minute as a movie, let alone a movie we rented. And Kanji had his own laptop that my parents gave him that played DVDs. And so I was like, well, here, Kanji, the DVD's not due till like a week. You want to borrow it and watch it tonight? And he just fucking snapped, and he was screaming at us, and then he just walked over to his house, and that was the last of it. And then I remember that night, he slept in. He slept in. And so my parents had taken me to school, and they had taken my brothers to school. And then I see Kanji the next day around lunchtime, because we all had the same lunch. And, me and Cody are sharing a lunch. Cody was very sweet. He used to buy me lunches back then. And Kanji comes up in front of all of our friends and starts, like, yelling at us about, mostly me, about how, like, it was really inconsiderate that my parents didn't wake his ass up and that they didn't take him to school. And I was like, Kanji, my parents work from home. They have very busy lives. My mother told you get rides if you wake up with us. And it's always the same time. It was never like, my high school was very like, there was never like, you go in late, you go in early. It was always same time every day. Even on like, we obviously didn't go on holidays, but like half days were never like, we get to like go into school later. It was always around 6 a.m, every time. And the school wasn't that far away from my house either. Like, again, as an adult, I think back, because I remember it was exactly 15 minutes on the freeway from my old house, my high school. Because I would be able to count, I would be able to listen to around 3 songs on average, sometimes 4 depending on it, even with traffic and stuff. So it wasn't even, there was no way you could walk there unless you wanted to, like, walk for about an hour because it was on the freeway, but you could easily get a ride. And so that's what Kanji had done. But instead of Kanji calling one of his other friends, one of his older friends, because he had a lot of friends, I remember he called Cody's parents. And Cody's parents came to my parents' house to pick up Kanji to take him to school, because they were also very important about education. And I remember thinking it was weird. I was such like a bad person back then, and by that, like, I could not handle people screaming at me, so I started crying. Cody got in a big fight with him. It was this whole ordeal. And again, future Michi, adult Michi's like red flag, red flag, red flag, red flag. But little naive, no self-confidence Michi was like, no, I don't have a lot of friends, and it's okay. He's just going through a hard time. His parents don't love him, and blah, 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 blah. Like, I was trying to rationalize why he was being such a dick. And it only gets worse from here. Trust me, it don't get better. It don't get better. It gets just worse. So these things started happening more and more. He was sleeping in. He would bitch at my parents for not taking him to school. It was no. And what had happened was, so we also started noticing that things were missing in the house. They were never anything big, but it would be something like, my mom is actually very, very controlling about food. My mom, it's where I get myself from. My mom would do things where, like, she would buy specific food for, like, her, and she'd be like, okay, this is my food, please don't touch it, I'll get you guys something else at the store. Well, her food started missing, and it was never food Kanji liked. I remember this because it was like, my mom was at the time especially, she was a real health nut to like a crazy degree. And not like keto diet health. Like, I remember my mother wouldn't buy anything with cholesterol in it. Like, anything. It was a very hard time in my house. And so, she had some really weird food that tasted disgusting, in my opinion. And my mom even agreed that it tasted disgusting now. But, like, it would go missing, and it was never us eating it. And it would be things like that. Or it would be, like, I remember my DS was missing one day, and then it was back in my room. And it was still, like, a lot of weird little things just kind of missing and then coming back. And didn't... Again, little high school me didn't think anything of it, and I tried to, like, see the good in people. So I was like, can't be Kanji. No, he's living here rent-free. We're taking care of him. So Kanji eventually dropped out of school, and he blamed my parents for it, but he dropped out of school, and he was still living there rent-free. And I remember my parents were like, because when he was going to school, they weren't hard on him finding a job or anything, but my parents were like, okay, you're 18, you dropped out of high school, you need to start looking for a job. And my parents offered to help him because my parents worked from home. So my parents would help him get job applications and try to apply to places. And they weren't like asshole forceful about it. I have another story of another person I could totally do a story time of that was just a whole nother roommate horror story that was from my friend's instance, which is like almost as bad as the stuff that's happened here. Because, we're not done. We're still not done, guys. We're not. So... Anyway, but I remember Kanji would always, like, have me go over to, fair quote, his house, and he would always bitch about my parents. And I was being manipulated, and I didn't realize it at the time, because he was my friend, I was a dumb high schooler, I had really low self-esteem. And my parents, in my little high school Michi mind, didn't get him. Didn't get Kanji. Didn't get what he was going through. And again, as an adult, now I'm sitting here like, I was such a fucking idiot. Like, of course they understood what was going through. They were seeing through the bullshit that I wasn't, because I was a very naive, little, innocent, trusting person. And so, I had come home from school one day, and I remember the school year was almost out at this time. It was almost out, and he was like, "Hey, Michi, come, I got a surprise for you," and go upstairs, whatever. And he has a kitten. And I look at him, I'm like, dude, my parents said you cannot have pets. And especially at this time, I didn't know because I was a high schooler, but my parents were starting to have financial struggles. The economy was starting to tank. The house market was really tanking at the time. And I was like, dude, you can't have this kitten. Like, because again, my family didn't have any pets at the time. So we were like, how are you supposed to get stuff for the cat? We don't have any cat food. We don't have any cat stuffs. There was no way for him to be smart and to like sneak stuff over to take care of a cat. And he's like, no, it's fine. I'm teaching it how to go to the bathroom in the like toilet, or it's not the toilet. It was like, go to the bathroom in the bathtub. And I'm like, the master bathroom upstairs has carpet. There is no like tile. The only tile is in there's not even it's a really stupid design of the house, but there wasn't even tile in the shower section. It was like all carpet, and the only tile was by the toilet. And I'm like, so you're letting it go on the carpet? He's like, no, I have newspapers down. And I'm like, what are you feeding the kitten? Because we don't have cat food, we don't have kitten food, we don't have anything. And he's like, oh, I'm feeding it cans of tuna that I'm sneaking over from your house. And I'm like, you can't just feed a kitten cans of tuna. Kittens need kitten food. Kittens need milk. Kitten needs this. He's like, no, it's fine. And I remember being like, my parents told you can't have a kitten. You can't have pets. And then he's like, well, no, it's a kitten. It's homeless. It's like me. And that stupid wording, I remember that got to me. Because I was like, shit, I don't know what it's like to be homeless. Now I do, but that's different. And so I was like, oh, I guess you're right. And so I had told Cody what had happened. And I had told him about the kitten thing. And Cody came over, and he was trying to talk to him and convince Kanji that he's like, hey, man, you can't keep this cat. The porters are being super nice to you living here. You can't do this shit. You can't do this shit. You're 18. You dropped out of high school. You're not looking for a job. Like, even though my parents were, like, helping and trying to he wasn't looking. He's like, you cannot do this shit. And Kanji was trying to get to Cody, and he eventually got to Cody, and needless to say, not too long after that, because I was an idiot. Now, see, what I should have done was right after that instance with Cody, I should have gone over to my parents and told them about the kitten. I didn't. Because I was an idiot, and I felt terrible for this guy who was my friend, and I didn't realize it was going to be this whole thing. And I thought, well, my parents like pets. I used to have pets. It'll be fine. So it was not fine. My parents and Kanji got into a terrible fight about this. Kanji said terrible things to my mother, about my mother, to her face. My father was screaming at him. It was terrible. I was breaking down crying. My brothers were really upset because they were really young at the time. And all I could remember was, like, I brought this into our house. And I sit back and I think of this, and I'm just... Shows why you can't make good decisions as a teenager. You can fight me on this, because, again, looking back on it now that I'm almost 26, it's almost been 10 years since that incident, and I'm just like, I'm such an idiot. Because at the time, I didn't know who to believe. I really didn't. Honest to God. I was like, I don't know whose side I should be on. If I should be on my parents, if I should be on Kanji's. Now, I should have been on my parents from day one. So, Kanji got rid of the cat, and then whenever we had any kind of, like, friend gathering things, everything... Kanji would openly belittle my parents. He would shit on them. He would talk all this terrible stuff. He would say really racist comments about them being Jewish. And it really upset me. But at the time, I didn't have a backbone. I didn't have a spine. And I just kind of let it happen because I was also going through a lot of my own stuff. Cody was seeing how it was upsetting me. And the economy was only getting worse. And so what had happened was... My parents didn't tell us how bad the money issues had gotten, but I remember we had come home from one friend hanging out gathering thing where Kanji the whole time fucking talked about how heartless my parents were, and I was just an idiot, and I just kind of let him do all that stuff. And we go back to my parents' house, and my parents sat all of us down. It was me, my brothers, and Kanji, and was like, hey, we are thinking about selling your grandma's house. And it was a big thing for us because we were like, wait, grandma has a lot of issues. Where is she going to go? Is she going to go to a home? My parents were like, no, she's going to live here. We're going to sell the house in about 6 months. Kanji, you're going to have to find another place to live for another 6 months. And, Kanji, again, didn't say anything. He fucking just got up and left and slammed the door in my parents' face and went up to his house and locked all the doors. He locked my grandmother in the house. My parents had to go in there, and he tried blocking the doors. It was this whole terrible, terrible ordeal. And he brought up everything else, and then it was almost summer now. And things had been getting worse, and it had been so toxic. And my parents were, I remember my mom would be like, we brought him here because you told us about it. No. And I felt like shit. I was so depressed, and I was going through a lot of other stuff that year, and it wasn't good. It wasn't good. So this was almost the nail in the coffin, but it was getting there. It was getting there for me. We knew Kanji was moving out because my parents had to sell the house and all this other stuff, and Kanji wasn't looking for a place to stay. He just wasn't. Now, it was the summer, and I remember it was for Cody's and mine's, I believe, our 1 year, maybe 2 year. They're kind of all blend together. We've been together so long. But for our 1 year, or whatever, our anniversary, we asked my parents in advance if we could have 4-day passes to go to Anime Expo. This would be our birthday / engagement. We weren't engaged yet. Our birthday / anniversary gift. My parents were like, yeah, that's fine, because we gave them a lot of notice, and my parents got us passes, and we got 4-day passes. It was super great. I remember Cody had, it was our 2 year, because Cody had just started his job. Was our 2 year. Sorry, doing math. Cody had just started his first job, and he could only get 2 days off of the full pass. And Kanji was a huge anime tard like we were. And Kanji would always go to AX, but Kanji was that moocher who would go to anime cons, and you know exactly what we're talking about if you go to cons a lot, where he would never buy his own badge. He would find a way to get a badge, or he would con someone into getting a badge. And so what had happened was we had been drifting apart, and Kanji had been looking for a place to live. Like, now he was looking for a place to live because it was getting serious about selling the house, and he couldn't live with us. And so what had happened was we had all had this, like, little meeting where Cody was like, hey, Kanji, I can only get 2 days off of work. The other days I'm, not going to Anime Expo. Do you want to use my pass and take Michelle? Because I really wanted to go all 4 days. At the time, I'd never gone all 4 days, and we were very excited. And Kanji was like, yeah, man, that'd be great. We would have it'd be perfect. And my parents were even willing to take Kanji and I to Anime Expo and pick us up, which is in the middle of fucking LA, which is, traffic central. So Cody and I go to Anime Expo our first 2 days. Everything's great. Everything's fine. We're having a blast. We're buying stuff, being fun, stupid young people in love, and just, being all smoochy, and we, all had fun. So Cody takes me home, and I put both of our badges in the bottom of my purse. I remember I put them in the bottom of my purse because I put all my other anime swag and stuff on top of it that I bought that day. And I went over to Kanji, and I was like, hey, ready to go tomorrow. Wake up at whatever time. We'll be good to go. So he's like, yeah, let's do this. So, go to bed, everything's fine. And then my mom wakes me up the next day. I had slept in through my alarm. And my mom's like, hey, Michelle, go over, get Kanji, and I'll take you guys to Anime Expo. So I wake up, and I go in my bag, and Cody's badge is missing. And I'm very confused. I'm like, oh, no, I thought I put... Because I remember myself, I'm like, oh, no, Cody's badge, he must have taken it home. But at the time, Cody's parents lived really close by, so I told my mom, I'm like, hey, I think that Cody left his badge in his backpack or in his car or something. I don't have it. We have to go get it to take Kanji to AX. And my mom's like, oh, okay, no problem. Go get Kanji. So I go next door. Kanji's not there. Not there. His cosplay stuff is gone. He's not there. And I'm like, Kanji's not there. And my mom is like, oh, that's weird. Okay. And then my mom didn't want me to, go to Anime Expo by myself because at the time I was, still young. I was 17. At this time I was 17. And I didn't have a car, I didn't have anything, and none of my other friends were going. And so my mom's like, okay, I'm not comfortable you going to an anime convention by yourself with no one there in the middle of LA. So I was like, oh, okay. So I was kind of bummed, but I was worried about Kanji. I'm like, where did Kanji go? Whatever, And then I call Cody. Cody comes over after work. We hang out, watch movies, and Kanji doesn't come back. Kanji's not back that night. Well, later that night, Cody gets a call from his boss and be like, hey, you can take tomorrow off, whatever. So Cody was all excited. He's like, oh, this is great. We can go to AX on the third day. And so I'm all excited, and I'm like, okay, we just need to get your badge with your car. He's like, no, Michelle, you have my badge. And I'm like, no, it's not in my bag. My bag, it wasn't there. And Cody's like, no, I put my badge with yours. I clipped them together because they used to be on clippy things, and put it in your purse. And I'm like, no, it was just my badge. And I show him my purse, and he's like, that's so weird. I don't have my badge. And so Kanji's still missing, okay? Now, Kanji kind of did this ever since he dropped out, where he would just kind of poof in and out, and we never thought much about it. We should have. We really, really should have, but we didn't. And so we were really confused and worried, and we really wanted to go to AX the next day. And so my mom, being the amazing mom that she was like, okay, I'll buy you guys a one-day pass, but you're going to have to get there early to go wait in lines because it's Anime Expo and it's line hell. So we go, and, my parents bought Cody another badge, okay? And then we get to AX early, we wait in the line, we pick up his other badge, go to AX to try to have some fun, and we run into Kanji. And Kanji has Cody's badge. And Kanji sees us. We weren't in cosplay, I think Kanji was. And Kanji comes up to us, and he is pissed. I have never seen this man so pissed in my life than he was in this moment. He was fuming red. He comes up to us. He was all disheveled and angry. He's like, and I'm like, and that's when I noticed his badge, because back then you used to have your name nicknamed on it, and it had Cody's nickname. It had Kuma. I'm like, you stole Cody's badge? And he's like, you said I could have it for the last 2 days. And Cody's like, wait, dude, that was in Michelle's purse in her bedroom, because Cody and I weren't living together yet. So this was in my purse, in my bedroom, middle of the night, closed door, locked, zipped up purse, locked back door. So that means that Kanji, in the middle of the fucking night, must have known when, because my dad used to be awake at night, must have known when my dad took his smoke breaks, got up, snuck into our house, snuck into my room, which was the furthest room in the house, opened my door, rummaged through my purse, unclipped Cody's badge, put my badge back, and then put all of my stuff back in the same order it was in, closed my door, snuck back out, and then just somehow found a way to go to AX. And I had felt so betrayed, because I was on his side throughout so much of this shit. I believed him, and I had just felt so violated. I had felt so violated that, because especially at the time, I'll be honest, I didn't really sleep in pajamas, so I wasn't naked, but I was like just in underwear. So I'm sitting here like, oh my god, like this guy burst into my room, rummaged through my stuff, put it back, and then closed it and acted like nothing happened. And so Cody got really pissed. And Cody got, he's like, what the hell? Like, after everything they've done for you, you steal from Michelle and you steal our anniversary gift? Because he knew it was for our anniversary. And Kanji then turns it up on himself. He's like, you don't know the night I had. I couldn't find a place to sleep. I couldn't find a place to eat. I couldn't get home. And they're kicking me out, so it's not even home. He's like, fine, take your fucking badge back. And I remember he took off Cody's badge. Now that Cody has his new one. He threw it at him. It was this whole ordeal. And he's like, and we're like, and he's like, well, tell me when you're leaving, so we'll go back. And I'm like, no. And I remember Cody looked at me. He's like, yeah, no, we're not taking you back. You can find your own way back. And her parents are knowing about this. And he's like, fine. They're all heartless, fucking Jewish, scummy people anyway. All they care about is money and selfishness and all this stuff. It's like, all they care about is money. And then I'm like, yes, you're right. My parents do care about money because my parents are taking care of my family, my mother's family, and your ass. And I remember that was the first time I had, like, grown a spine. And I just had it. I had it with this fucking person who I trusted, who I just wanted to help, who my parents just wanted to help, to just take all of it and just shit on it, to steal from me, to steal from my parents, to be spiteful, to be an asshole, and just all this terrible, terrible shit. And the icing on the cake was when my parents sold the house and he had found a new place to live. My parents helped him move his shit into that next house. Now, I said at the beginning of this whole thing that these weren't the nails in the coffin. I'm going to tell you what the nail in the coffin was, okay? This is a very fast one in this long story time of my asshole roommate, because he wasn't living with me at the time. Kanji wasn't living with me ever again. It was about a year later. Kanji had gotten his GED from this other nice family that he had scammed. Because I realized now he had scammed them just like he had scammed my parents. And they were very nice people. They paid for everything for him. Again, so he didn't have to work. We were invited to his party, and we hadn't seen him since my parents had helped him move. That was like the last time I had seen him. I know Cody had seen him every now and then doing guy stuff, but that was about it. And he had told us, because at the time we liked we liked exploring abandoned places. And he had told us about this abandoned place that he had found, that he was super excited about, like, showing us, and it was so great because it had power and air conditioning and a working fridge and all this stuff. And I remember being the person I was, and you gotta remember at this time, Kanji was probably 19 now at this point, 19, almost 20. I was still in high school. It was my senior year. And, we go over, we're just glad that he got his GED. We're glad he kind of got his life together. So we thought, and he wants to show us this abandoned house. And so he takes us to this neighborhood. He directs us to it because he doesn't give us the address. And it's a populated neighborhood. It's not an abandoned neighborhood. You can tell the difference between an abandoned neighborhood and a popular neighborhood. And I'm getting really bad vibes, and Cody's getting really bad vibes. And then we see a for sale sign in front of this house. And he's like, there's the house. And I'm like, dude, that's not an abandoned house. That's a house for sale. As a kid who comes from parents who do real estate, that's a crime. And he's like, no, it's not. No one's using it. No, I don't see any realtor, whatever. The sign's been there for months. And we're like, it doesn't matter, dude. And so he's like, fine, you don't want to explore it? And we're like, no. And so we got over on the side of the road and we let him out of the car. And I remember just shaking my head and being like, wow, I thought he had changed, and Kanji just didn't change. And so, right as we had let Kanji out, talk about karmic justice, right? A police car drives by, just doing like a normal patrol, as Kanji jumps over the fence into this house. Cody and I see the police car. Police car sees us, turns his lights on, and I get very scared. Because I'm like, oh my God, what's happening? Because especially at the time, I was very anxious. And so Cody's like, listen, I've dealt with cops. We didn't do anything wrong. We just need to stay here. Don't move. Call your parents, tell them what's going on. So I called my parents, told them what's going on. I told them everything. My parents were so upset because, again, Kanji was involved and it was just all this terrible stuff. And so, we're like, oh, it won't be that big deal. The cops will get him. He'll explain that he was being a fucking idiot, and that was the day. Well, the cop comes over to us and tells us what happened, and we told him what we had happened and what had happened. And he's like, okay, and then he gets a call on his walkie, and we couldn't hear it. He comes back, and the cop looks pissed. He's like, well, your friend just tried to run from the police. So they called more cop cars in, because he's now running around this, area, and we're just like, oh my God, Kanji, what the fuck? Why are you running from the police? I was always raised, you got nothing to hide. You don't fucking run from the police. That's how I was raised, and that's how I've always felt. And so more cops came. It was this whole ordeal. I was crying because I was an emotional mess. I had no idea what was going on. And then a little while later, we see them take Kanji away in handcuffs. And, another cop comes up to us and he's like, hey, that kid said that you guys told him to steal stuff for you. That's why you dropped him off, was because you guys were the getaway car. And I remember I just laughed. I fucking laughed. I laughed because that was it. That was the last thing to make me literally not care about anyone anymore. I started laughing, and Cody was so pissed. Cody's like, no, this is what happened. And the cop looked at both of our IDs, because I didn't even have an ID. I had a school ID at the time. Cody had a driver's license. And he's like, the only thing that's saving you two from right now, from going in a cop car, is the fact that you're both minors. Go home. You're going to get a call from the court in a couple days. We went home, and I kept laughing. I'm like, he tried to get us arrested. Because of his own dumbass fault. And then we had later found out, because I had cut all times with Kanji after that, and so had Cody. And so we hadn't heard from Kanji in years, until out of nowhere he kind of showed back up, and we haven't seen him again since this. Because Cody asked him years later, he's like, why did you tell the cops that we told you to steal for you? Why did you try to get me and Michelle arrested? And he dead ass looked at us both and said, I knew her parents were Jewish, and I knew they'd get a good lawyer, and I knew I wouldn't have gone to jail. And I'm like, well, that didn't happen, did it? And he's like, no, I went to jail. And I'm like, did you learn anything from it? And he was like, yeah, I learned not to trust Jewish people. and I remember just being so, shocked at the racism of some people. And I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that this person that I had lived in my life, that had so many wonderful opportunities, had done that. And then and then the little cherry on top of everything for this story, I found out about this year. Kanji's parents never kicked him out. He didn't. He lied to my family, to Cody, to me, because he thought he'd have an easier life living with us than living with his family. So he made up everything from the beginning, because he just wanted an easy out. He wanted an easy life. And from last I've heard, Kanji is still scamming people and still being a piece of shit person. And I don't care. Anymore. But that was realistically my first real dose, real slap in the face, of people who I trusted and I tried to help stab me in the back. And that's my terrible roommate story. Hopefully the audio wasn't too echoey. We're still moving in, so we don't have a lot of stuff. So my room is very, very sparse right now. And the jingling of the cats and the pets. But I'm excited to be moved out. I hope you guys enjoyed this story time. And like the last one, if you want to hear about my friend's psycho roommate, because my friend had not to the same extent as ours, but it was still pretty bad. I really like listening and making these, because they're they're kind of fun to reminisce and then just again think back to be like, wow, I thought this, and looking back now, I was an idiot. No. So, all right, I'm gonna leave it here. I've rambled enough, and as always, guys, I will see you next time. Bye.